Today we are going to be taking a look at percents, and I hope when you think about percentages you say, yes, that's definitely something I've talked about before. So hopefully in a big piece this is review, but as we walk through and we talk about percents, there's a couple pieces that we want to make sure we understand. First of all, a percent is always a value out of 100. Okay, so if I say 17%, what we're really saying is that that is something that is 17 out of 100. Okay, so we always can turn a percent into a fraction, right? And when we are looking at a percent, there are different ways that we can talk about dealing with percents. Okay, one way that we can look at percents is by dealing with them with proportions. So proportions are where we have two fractions set equal to each other, where one of the fractions is always going to be whatever the percent is over 100. This number over here is always 100 because, like we said, a percent is always out of 100. Our other fraction is going to be whatever the part is over whatever the whole value is. So if I say 17%, that's 17 out of 100. That means if I have 100 objects in whole, in entirety, okay, then I am taking 17 of them. So that's the part and the whole. Now, when we are reading in the English language, what we see after the word is going to be telling us the part, and what we see after the word of is going to be telling us the whole. Now, when we are dealing with percents tend to get us sometimes to messy percentages. So you're going to hear us say round to the nearest tenth or round to the nearest hundredth or something like that, which means we need to know what those place values are, and my students tend to get this confused. So this is our decimal point right here. If this is our decimal point, hopefully we know that this is our ones position and this is our tens position. But students then tend to get this confused. They want there to be some type of ones over here, but this goes to our tenths with a TH at the end. And this is our hundredths position. So if we want to round to the nearest tenth, we would need to look at the hundredth, right? And the rule is that if it's 5 or above, so if it's 5 through 9, then we bump this value up, right? And if the value is 0 through 4, then we keep this value the same. Okay, so let's then put this into consideration with percent. So if I say, what is 22% of 40? There's a couple ways that we can talk about this. There's multiple ways that we can deal with percents. One isn't right, one isn't wrong. Okay, so you can sort of choose either what you remember doing in the past or what makes more sense to you. Option number one is you can always use this proportion format. So for my students who are like, I just have no idea what to do, I always suggest it's a good idea to just start by doing this fraction equals a fraction. Okay, and then to look up in the problem and see if you can figure out what the percent is. So the percent is 22, and we said that goes in the top over here, so that's going to be 22, and we know that that's always out of 100. Okay, and then this tells us that this is of 40. So we said whatever we read after the word of is going on the bottom. That's our whole value. Okay, so I'm going to put this 40 on the bottom. Now, we're looking for that missing piece. So we're going to fill this in with our variable. What is that missing value? And again, maybe it's been a while, maybe you've slept since then, but to solve a proportion, we can always cross multiply. Now, I know some of you have memorized this rule of sort of just like circling around and dividing. I want you to understand what's really happening. These two fractions are equivalent to each other. They equal each other. Okay, which means if we cross multiply, that says if we multiply this direction, it should be equivalent to multiplying this direction. Okay, so if I multiply here, 100 times x is 100x. And that should be equal to multiplying 40 times 22. Now, if you're like, I don't know what 40 times 22 is, just pick up a calculator. 40 times 22 is 880. And then this is just something we can solve. This is just a regular equation. We can divide by 100. Okay, so if we take 880 and we divide it by 100, we get x equals 8.8. So what is 22% of 40? Our answer would be 8.8. Now, I do know that some of you might say to me, well, Mrs. McKinney, I don't need to go through that whole proportion thing. I've learned that you can always multiply by a percent as long as you turn it into a decimal. Okay, and that is a true statement as long as you just make sure you're turning it the correct way. Okay, so if you know that you can multiply, so you can just take 40 times 22%, that's fine. You just have to make sure you turn your percent into a decimal. Okay, and if you remember that rule to turn it into a decimal, you are going to move that decimal point 2 points over. So we would take 40 times 0.22, which we could also do in our calculator, and it will also give us 8.8. Okay, good news about this one is that this is consistent. You can always use this option. Over here with the decimal option, you kind of have to memorize more of a pattern and know what's going where. Not saying that you can't use it, this is totally fine, but as the situations change up, you're just gonna have to make sure you recognize those different formats. So if we look at number 2, now it says 30 is what percent of 55? So this is no longer just multiplying. We don't see what the percent is in here. Okay, but we can go to our blank equals blank. Okay, we know that this is going to be 100. This is always 100. Of, okay, our of goes on the bottom, so that's our 55. Now again, the English language is a little bit weird, so this is our is. This one just happens to be after. Okay, but it makes sense. 30 is what part of 55? 30 is the part, 55 is the whole. We don't know the percent, so we're going to leave that as an x. And now we can cross multiply, just like we were solving the last ones. I tend to always multiply the direction that the x is first, but again, that's up to you. So that means 55x. We'll do 30 times 100. Again, use a calculator if you need to, no worries. Okay, and then we'll divide. So we'll do 3,000 divided by 55. This gives us a big old long decimal. So I just typed it into my calculator here to show you. Here's the big old long decimal. It's telling us to round to the nearest tenth. So we want one decimal place. So we're going to look after the 5. After the 5 is a 4. So that says to keep it the same. So this is going to be 54.5%. Now, if you want to do this one as a decimal, again, this kind of requires memorizing. We know the part and we know the whole. So you would need to divide those out to get your decimal. Okay, and it's going to give you this big old long decimal. But we want this as a percent, and if we're turning something into a percent, that means we're moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. So same thing, we're getting that 54.5%. Number 3, 15 is 30% of what number? So if we're doing 15 is 30% of what number? We know we can always go to our proportion option. A fraction equals a fraction, where this is always 100. It tells us our percent is 30, so we know that here. Okay, so 15 is 30% of what value? Of what value? The of is the unknown, so our of is the x, right? Our 15 is the is. So again, if we cross multiply here, that will give us a 30x. If we go to solve this, we will now divide, because we undo multiplication with division. Okay, so if we divide this out, that's going to give us 50. So 15 is 30% of 50. This is the trickiest one to know what to do in the decimal format, because it doesn't really give us any hints here at all. The only thing that I can tell you is that you just have to know you're doing 15 divided by the percent. There really isn't something to help you there. Again, that's why I sort of say this option over here on the left is consistent and works every time. If we divide this, we get 0.5, but that's not giving us our actual value. Just like we did up above, we still have to multiply that times, or move that decimal point 2 to the right, multiply by 100. Okay, so if we move this 2 over, that's actually going to give us 50. This is by far my least favorite option. It exists, it is there, it is my least favorite. Then what happens if we apply this into a story problem? Okay, so don't let the words freak you out. Let's go through and read it. Julio has $150. He wants to purchase a pair of wireless headphones. They are originally priced at $170, but are on sale for 15% off. He will also need to pay 7% sales tax. Does he have enough money? So if we look at this problem, let's see what we have to start with. We know that we have $150. Okay, that's how much we have to start with. We want to see if this is enough money. Okay, he wants to purchase some wireless headphones that cost $170. But they're on sale for 15% off. So if we just look at this piece, we know that we can either do some multiplying or we can do one of our proportions. They're 15% off. They're originally $170. This is what we're trying to find. Okay, so if we cross multiply here, that's going to give us 2550. And we said we would divide to solve. Now, this is not just like a simple answer. We now need to apply it. This is telling us how much is off of the price. So if something is coming off the price, we need to consider if that's addition or subtraction. Well, off would be subtraction. So now it's $25.50 less. So if we subtract off that $25.50, it's now $144.50. But he's also going to have to pay a 7% sales tax. So again, we have to go through that process again. We know there's a 7% sales tax. Okay, we know the original price is $144. So we're going to multiply this. I don't know what that is times 7, so I'm using a calculator as well. Okay, so that equals 1011.5, and then I'm going to divide that by 100. Okay, now we're talking about money, so if we are talking about money, 2 decimal points is how we deal with money. So I'm going to say that that's $10.12. That's an additional value that we have to pay. So we are going to have to add that back on to this. So we need to take that $144.50 and add that $10.12 to it. Okay, and that gives us a $154.62. So this is going to be the price of the headphones. Do we have enough money to purchase it? Unfortunately, Julio either needs to see if his parents will give him the extra $4.62, or he's out of luck with purchasing the headphones.